Are you the Martha Barrett stand-in?
Yeah, I was the George Armstrong stand-in there. No, I'm not stand-in for Martha here.
Wow. I was happy to see you.
Well, everyone's standing, so I'm going to ask that we start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Martha couldn't make it today, but this was the prayer that she planned to do. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon, and where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Alice. Christy, are you there?
Yes, President Tom, I'm here.
Great. Do you have a Family of Rotary update for us today?
I do, thanks. So for birthdays, past President Bill Langley is celebrating his birthday today. So happy birthday to past President Bill. And then past President Lee Mercier is celebrating his birthday on April 18th. For member anniversaries, Marcus Strua is celebrating 52 years with Rotary on April 15th. And past President Harvey Schlesinger is celebrating 42 years on April 17th. So two big ones. And for wedding anniversaries, Richard Miller and his wife Peggy celebrated 7 years of marriage on April 12th.
Thank you, Christy. Also, I wanted to mention that past President Jerry Hank's service will be Sunday, April 18th at 1 p.m. at the Hardage Giddens Oak Lawn Lodge. So you want to note that down. So whose birthday was it today?
Mine.
I'm sorry, what?
And it was mine. And he's sitting right next to Lee as well.
Yeah. Hey, guess
Fun
who?
never ends here, does it?
So guess who called me last night?
I have no idea. Oh, thank you.
Tracy.
Mine was
Yeah,
when he
Tracy
got
called because, you know, what would a Rotary meeting be without embarrassing a past president?
nothing.
Oh,
It
wow.
was a sparkler.
You have what?
It's not a Roman or a sparkler.
There, okay, Maestro.
Just a sec, can't miss that.
All right.
Oh, wow, you didn't really need to do that,
Yeah. And Lee, will you
Well,
count for us?
two the
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bill. Happy birthday to you. Hey, you're supposed to blow it out.
Lucky it went out, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to go out.
I'd light back up in a
It's
minute.
from the birthday archives. Yeah, you can't count on those candles. All right. Thanks for being such a good sport this time. I know. So we had a social last night.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Lisa Marie, you want to tell us about that?
I'd love to tell you.
I thought you might.
You want me to come up there and tell you about it?
I would
Yeah.
love for you to do that. Lisa Marie, come on. You have 60 seconds.
Okay, I've got 60 seconds. Great event last night. Thank you to everyone who attended. I know we had a couple folks who weren't able to attend at the last minute. The fellowship was wonderful. And I know while we have used Zoom to keep us together, it was really nice to do that in-person thing last night. I know I felt it. Eddie's first in-person social meeting, social event. So we were really excited about that. I learned that Mary Alice and Martha are sisters, had no idea. And I learned so much more. So it was just a really great opportunity to get to network. And we talked about several additional ideas of things that we want to try and do before the end of President Tom's presidency. And just continue to enjoy each other. So thank you very much for supporting it. And hopefully we'll have some more information about our next social and or service project here soon. So thank you. Next week. And then you saw some of the pictures. So yes, thank you to our photographer.
Yeah, it was fun. We had a terrible time, Michelle, by the way. It was terrible. Food was terrible. Right. President-elect Richard, we have a little bit of an update as well. You have to come up here. Okay. Party line. Yay.
Thank you, President Tom. Sunday afternoon, I opened my email and there it was, the grant approval for our Food Fight #2 effort. And all of a sudden, everything changed. And I thought, oh my word, I have to get this all done by Thursday, the 15th of April. That is the deadline for completing all of the grant actions and submitting all the paperwork. Yes, Thursday, April 15th, the Ides of April. And so what I'm asking for this afternoon is volunteers to help deliver food on Thursday morning to 3 food pantries. We don't know exactly where the food is going to be yet. Everybody loves a mystery. But if you would like to help on Thursday morning, please just look up my email and let me know you're available, and I will give you the details the minute I get them. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so we're winding up my COVID presidency, and so I'm trying to fill as much as we can. So what's a district grant in 3 days, right? Right,
Yeah,
B?
geez.
I mean, right. We're doing it. We're doing it. Yeah, you're gonna be out of town, B? Yeah. So you're gonna be out of town? Yes, you're gonna be out of town. Yeah. No worries, it's all good. So if anyone finds that they can help, please let President-elect Richard know, or Patty, or me, or someone, just so we can make all this happen. It's not anything like the scale that we were able to accomplish last year. People who need something to eat, who didn't ever think they would fall within that category. So we're happy that we can do what we can do. All right. Past President Bill.
Yes.
You don't have to come up.
Keep
Once
getting
you-
another
or you
birthday.
can.
Get another birthday.
Yeah, you get another one here. You can mention
It's also
that.
my anniversary today too, that way I keep them all on the same day.
Wow, you're lucky.
No, that would not be the truth. I asked President Tom to give me just a minute to remind everybody, on your desk or on your tables are some new membership prospective names. I'm glad to report last night we had several guests there last night, so thank you for bringing. I think we had 4 or 5 guests that were there. 2 of them were spouses, but they still spread the word. They had a good time, and we want to get back out, but we need to work on our membership, and the membership committee cannot do it alone. So what we're going to ask everybody to do, including you Zoomers, so pay attention, and you'll see an email probably tomorrow on this, is to reach out and give us the name and contact information for at least one friend. We want to have everybody bring at least one guest to the club between now and the end of the year. And we want to start working those members so we can build our numbers back up. And as you saw last night, we're getting back out and doing our socials. We got some service projects lined up. So those are great opportunities to bring a prospective member to the club. Thank you, President.
So is the blue for people we like and the yellow is for people we don't like?
No,
No, okay,
it was the lack of paper we had in the supply room.
okay, okay.
So reassuring that the past district governor thinks we need to pull people in we don't like to
No,
expand
no,
our
no, no.
membership. I know, right,
Sorry.
right. Mark Rollo, would you please come introduce our visitors and guests? Mark.
I practiced this yesterday with Gary Wilkinson, so I should know. Any visiting Rotarians? Any on Zoom? No? Okay, that part was easy. Anybody have any guests today? Any guests, either live, Zoom? Oh, great, now I gotta go right into the song. All right, we ready?
Wonder if Parker Shields was watching. Are you there, Parker? I think that's a no. Okay. Aaron Perry, would you please come introduce our program?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Colleen Bell, who will be speaking with us today. She's a board-certified psychiatrist by training, and she has dedicated her career to working with the underserved. She is the current medical director of integrated health at the Sulzbacher Center in Jacksonville, where she leads a diverse staff in terms of licensure. She's engaged in homeless outreach as well as clinic visits and administrative functions that includes funding, growth, and development of medical and psychiatric programs and services. She oversees the HOPE teams, which are the street outreach programs, as well as the mobile medical bus, Hope and Health on Wheels. She is the lead for the mental health diversion program in Jacksonville, and she is also core faculty for the Orange Park Medical Center psychiatric residency program. Previously, she was the medical executive director at Northeast Florida State Hospital and was responsible for all clinical operations of the 633-bed hospital. She has conducted volunteer legislative review for State Senator Aaron Bean, and some of her recommendations were adopted into Senate Bill 12, a mental health overhaul bill signed into law in Florida. Dr. Bell lives in Jacksonville, Florida with her 3 adorable children, and her goal is to expand quality medical awareness in Jacksonville. Please welcome Dr. Colleen Bell.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you for inviting me here. Always happy to talk about mental health and psychiatry and what I do. I thought today, and Erin's going to circulate our one-page handout, I talk mostly about an exciting new venture we have at Sulzbacher with various other partners that really looks to keep the mentally ill out of jails, which I know is a hot topic, even more so now than ever before. So it's called, it was backed initially, well, and still is, by Chief Judge Mahan and Councilman Ron Salem. The funding, it comes from half of it from the city of Jacksonville, half of it through the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and some in-kind funding from Sulzbacher, which is basically a lot of my time, to run this program called the Mental Health Offender Program. So it's a pilot. We're working now on having long-term funding, but really what we're trying to do is to keep people with severe mental health issues and a lot of misdemeanor arrests out of the criminal justice system. You know, these are the people who everybody agrees jail is not the best place for them. They also end up costing, of course, the system a lot of money because they're cycling in and out of our CSUs, crisis stabilization units. They're cycling in and out of our jail. They're using a lot of high acuity and expensive services, you know, in there because they're so ill. So we are partnered, have great partners in this pilot, which includes the Duval County judges, State Attorney's Office, Public Defender's Office, City of Jacksonville, of course, JSO, us, Lutheran Services of Florida, and Gateway Community Services. So this really is a team approach. I have the privilege of overseeing the Sulzbacher operations of it. I had to hire a team of 4 staff, all turned out to be phenomenal women, an intensive case manager, a peer support specialist, as well as a psychiatric nurse practitioner and someone to help them with disability benefits and housing. So this team of 4 ladies, we've been working very hard figuring out the kinks and the ins and outs of this program. It was modeled, I don't know if you've heard about what's been happening in Miami for over the past decade with Judge Leifman and all the work, amazing work they've done in Miami, that they've literally been able to close down jails because they've reduced the amount of people needing to go to jail through programs such as this. So, you know, here in Jacksonville, we want to be, you know, part of something like that. So a huge kudos to Chief Judge Mahan, who really has been the one spearheading this. He's gone on the news a couple times telling people about us, but he really is, you know, we have a lot of people in very good positions who are backing this. So our scope for this 9-month pilot was initially we were hoping to take 40 people. That's based on initial data. We thought about over 60% of them would actually have housing. What we've come to find out, and in looking through Miami's data, is that every single one of the people we have gotten so far, and we've gotten about 13 participants so far in our program since we went live on February 1st, has been homeless. So the requirements, you know, it's really not too much. We do want them to abide by the terms of the program, although we give them a lot of chances, obviously. They have to abide by what the court recommends in terms of supervision. And of course, once we get them to the point, we have 1 actually in permanent supportive housing now. Once they get to that point, obviously they have to abide by the terms of their lease because, you know, the landlord tells them they can't be there anymore. And we can't step in, you know, if they violated their lease. So Judge Eckley Moeller and Magistrate Brady are the 2 judges that we've been working with for this pilot, and they've been awesome to work with. Any problems, issues, we do a brief staffing before our court hearings, which are 2 Mondays a month. Right now over Zoom because of, you know, COVID. But really what we offer is, you know, there's a rich array, and I think that Sulzbacher is uniquely placed, is probably the best fit out of all the nonprofits to do this sort of project, because I don't know if you know much about what we do at Sulzbacher, but we have healthcare, we have housing, we can get people free medications, we have a robust med room where if they don't have insurance or income, all their meds are free. We offer case management. We offer job support through Goodwill. We offer outpatient substance use treatment through Gateway. You know, really there's so much that we can offer. And I think because what these individuals need is they don't really need so much my services. They don't I mean, obviously they need medication, very much so. But a lot of things what people need more of is, you know, access to good, you know, get good food, you know, having their medications, being able to pay for their medications. You know, the individuals in this pilot, you know, all of them are slam dunks for the disability process. You know, these are people who really couldn't hold down a job to support themselves. So, but all of those systems are very complicated. It takes a lot to navigate through them. It takes a lot for me to navigate through them. So let alone somebody who is acutely psychotic, not even reality-based sometimes, how are they going to necessarily do it on their own? So the eligibility criteria for this new project is they have to be charged with a nonviolent misdemeanor. So unfortunately, the ticket into the program is an arrest on a nonviolent misdemeanor, excluding DUI. They have to have a severe mental illness that would require our level of services. What I quickly figured out was that when JSO is labeling somebody with a mental health flag, they call it in their system, it's not just a little bit of depression or anxiety, it's usually they have full-blown psychosis. Our top 2, well, really our only 2 diagnoses besides some substance use thrown in there too, is schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder. So these are very, very ill individuals. A lot of them have been in the state hospitals in addition to being in jail and the crisis units and all that. The way the list was created, and it was created by JSO, the defendant had to be arrested 4 more times since 2017. Our top individual in the program has had over 130 arrests in his lifetime. Pretty much all of them have been for trespassing. He has an intellectual disability on top of a very severe case of schizophrenia. So he'll sleep in the dumpster by the jail and they'll arrest him, which doesn't make a lot of sense why you're arresting somebody who's sleeping in a dumpster, but well, I guess because for trespass, if you're looking at it literally. So, so a lot of the arrests are for things like that, or he'll be hungry. So he'd go into the local grocery store and take a candy bar. You know, he has the mindset of a small child. So he's hungry, he wants a candy bar, he goes in. So now we've got it where he'll, you know, when he needs snacks or things like that, he comes to us at Sulzbacher, and he's comfortable doing that now rather than going into somewhere and taking things that aren't his and then, you know, getting himself in trouble. He's actually made a lot of progress, by the way. So he's the top one, but we have others in there that have been arrested numerous times over the past 3 years, which is how far back they went with the data. Of course, they have to have that mental health flag in JSO's system, which again, I explained is they're not giving that flag lightly. They can't be classified as a sexual offender or a sexual predator. They don't have an open felony case. They're not currently on felony probation or parole. They can have a prior history of felonies depending on what it was. You know, if it was something really violent, that would disqualify them. But the state attorney, what happens is the jail, well, they used to call me at 5:30 in the morning, but I got it so they'll email me instead and then call me after 7 because it only took a few days and my husband's like, do they really need to call that early? And I'm like, no, they don't. But anyway, even I'm not up at 5:30 and I have 3 kids, but so they'll email me in the morning. I'll get the name to the state attorney, who we've been working with, Coral Messina, in the state attorney's office. She'll run their background again to make sure that they're legal-wise, they're appropriate. And then I will go screen them in the jail. I ask them very few questions, the main being, you know, do you want to ascertain if they want to do this program, if they're capable of providing informed consent. Pretty much everybody we have on the program is on a long-acting injectable antipsychotic, which is great because then we know for a month they've got their meds in them and we don't have to chase them down about taking orals. One lady, the one who doesn't, told me she would do it and then she backed out. And we're still working with her to try to get her on one. But and I screen them to make sure it's not a primary substance use disorder that's, you know, making them come in and out of the jail. But that's, you know, pretty much it. We really try to, well, I try to coax people. I mean, I show up, they don't know me. You know, here I am offering them all this great things, you know, like, oh, well, we can put you in a hotel, you know, if you don't have anywhere to go. You know, we can help you get your disability. We can, you know, get your benefits, you know, and a lot of these individuals have been cycling in and out of the systems. You know, maybe some of what was promised to them came true, maybe some of it wasn't, but, you know, they don't know me for the most part. There's some that are in the program that luckily we had a prior relationship with. So it can be hard to get people to engage in that trust, you know, when we first meet them. So anyway, so that's the eligibility criteria. So I screen all the potential participants. Sometimes we go to pick them up and it goes fine. Sometimes we go to pick them up and they run off on us. So we've had that happen actually quite a few times. So then we have to try to find them. Usually they pop up in a hospital or in jail again. So then we go, actually we have a lady who just popped back up because she's at Shands, and they called me and told us she was there. So one of our caseworker went over there to talk with her now that she's had some medicine in her, and to see if she'd be willing to work with us. Sulzbacher provides all the clinical treatment. So I oversee the team that does all the, you know, the clinical treatment for the individual. The court supervises them throughout the duration of the program. We haven't really come to a set term about when does somebody end. It's going to be probably more of a joint decision based heavily on what the clinical team says, if they're ready to come out of the MHOP program. People who successfully have their case dismissed as part of a deferred prosecution agreement. So, although honestly, I can tell you what is motivating to be in the program, charges necessarily against them. It's, us getting them in a hotel, us getting them something meaningful to do during the day, us just showing that we care about them and that somebody is looking in on them. I mean, those really are more of the motivating factors, getting their food stamps back on, than necessarily the charges, because for the guy with over 130 arrests, it's no big deal for him to be arrested because it's happened over and over again. So, but we're offering something different. Excuse me. So what we report on, and we report on this project in, I forget the official name of it, but it's the committee that Ron Salem heads up, the opioid task force, and it's part of the reporting in that group. But we, what we're going to be looking at, what we've started looking at is, how are we saving taxpayers? How much are we saving in arrest costs? Are people spending less time in jail? Are we saving, the crisis units as we get people stabilized? Hopefully they need to be Baker Acted less or not at all. Hopefully we're reducing the amount of Jacksonville Fire and Rescue, their involvement with responding to calls on these individuals. And reducing their demands on law enforcement. Their law enforcement needs to be out there, doing their job, but arresting somebody for sleeping in a dumpster is perhaps not the most effective use of resources. Improving the collaboration. We've had lots of great discussions, with all the different partners in this program. Lots of good ideas have been generated. Everybody has approached it with a very problem-solving, positive attitude. I think that's wonderful for our community. Increasing our capacity and safety for the pretrial detention facility. These are individuals who, maybe there's other individuals who should be in jail, but some of these beds are being taken up. And despite COVID, what I've been told is the jail is still full. Reducing crime incidents, reducing homelessness, reducing people coming back in and out of the criminal justice system, getting them some income. Whether they are able to work. So far, none of the individuals, I don't think, could hold down a full-time job, but maybe doing a part-time job, and at least getting them that coverage with a Social Security disability, so that they can pay their rent. And substance abuse treatment and recovery. A lot of, as we know, a lot of mental health disorders are frequently comorbid with substance use. So making sure they're getting treatment for that. So, it's been a learning curve. It's nothing I've ever done before. Obviously, it's new. It's a neat way to look at it because I've seen the state hospital side, which works, in getting people stable, but that is a very, very controlled environment. And these people, get discharged. They have the right to go out into the world. So, but then what happens to them? So I think it's kind of neat to see it, from multiple, for me to see it from multiple perspectives. So I don't know how I'm doing on time. Sorry.
You're doing great.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. So then I can talk about other things. Okay. So I wanted to talk a bit, about, mental health in Jacksonville. So, I came here, I did my training up north, and I came down to Jacksonville. And of course, my first job was out in McClenny, which was quite a shift for me, to say the least. But there's great people there. But it seemed like the mental health we have here in Jacksonville was not nearly, as robust as perhaps, I was used to. I had the fortune to train at a 300-bed inpatient psychiatric facility in Pittsburgh, where we had a floor for eating disorder patients. We had a floor for severe and persistent mental illness patients. We had all these great services, and then I come to Florida. I relocated because my family had relocated to the Amelia Island area, and we were going to have our first child at that point, and want to be closer to my mom. You know, and I think it was a really good move because so I got to see kind of, you know, when you have a lot of resources and a lot of buy-in, what kind of structures are in place. And then I get to Florida, which isn't the same way, you know, but I have that as sort of, okay, well, this is what's possible. And, you know, being involved in this mental health offenders program pilot, you know, I think is phenomenal. I think it's amazing to get all these different personalities and everybody kind of approaching a situation from all different angles, you know, working together on, okay, well, how do we help these individuals? How do we help our city? How do we help our community? You know, and I'm really excited because I feel like I've gotten, you know, into, you know, I've been here since 2013, and already I've seen, you know, lots of changes. And I think that's only going to improve and increase. You know, I think some of the issues are, we tend to look at those who have mental health disorders as different. So I serve on 3 different boards, but the one that's most near and dear to my heart is the National Alliance of Mental Illness in Jacksonville. So we have a chapter. So NAMI, or National Alliance of Mental Illness, it's a nationwide program where we offer services to individuals and their families or loved ones of someone with mental illness. And all the services are free. The Jacksonville chapter, since I've been there, we've hired our first executive director, Suzanne Milieu, who's been phenomenal. We had our first walk last year. We had to do it virtual because of COVID, but this year, October 10th, we're going to have one in person with food trucks and fun, just to raise awareness about the stigma for mental health, because, you know, like the folks in the mental health offenders program are probably more what some of us might think about when we first think about mental health, somebody talking to themselves, muttering, disheveled, dirty, you know, perhaps, you know, living on the side of the road. You know, you see them downtown when you come, and well, people are homeless everywhere, but it's more noticeable downtown. You know, we tend to see them, you know, as other or not like us. But what I hope people, you know, have realized, and I think that's one of the silver linings to COVID, is that mental health affects everybody. It affects everybody in this room, whether yourself, whether a loved one, a friend. I mean, it is everywhere. The rates for major depression are 25% over someone's lifetime. 25% of people have a major depressive episode. You know, that's huge. That's 1 in 4 people. So, and that's just an example. You know, you look at what's happening, you know, in the schools with suicides, you know, these kids that are committing suicide, like at the Beaches area, in the Ponte Vedra area, you know, some of that's made the news. So it's not, hoping people will see is that mental health is not just limited to those that are in this program, but really it affects us all. So NAMI Jacksonville, we've been able to do, you know, great things, even though we're a small nonprofit. The week of March 15th to 22nd, we have a partnership with the Duval County Schools, where we do a presentation about ending the silence. So that's ending the silence about, you know, people not talking about stigma or mental health. So during that week, they reached 1,500 students with their presentations. I mean, that's huge. We have family support groups, either virtual or in person. All these services are free. So if your a loved one is, you know, having mental illness and you don't know how to talk to them about it, you don't know how you should approach them or how you should act around them, you know, the family support groups are great, because then you meet other people who have a loved one who are struggling with a mental health issue. We have peer-to-peer groups, so people living with mental illness can learn about their illness, you know, and meet others who are also going through their journey. We also do presentations at River Point and Wekiva. We do lunch and learns. We recently started a new program called Homefront, which is talking about mental health issues in the military, which I think is a huge unmet need. We're increasing our outreach to the African-American community, which is a huge unmet need. And we also have a helpline that's 7 days a week. It's not a crisis line, so someone won't, you know, answer exactly when you call, but if you say, you can call or email and say, you know, my loved one is going through this, you know, what resources can I refer them to? So I'd encourage everybody to look at NamiJax.org. That's our website. I'm the board chair for it, and I think we've really made great strides, but I think about, you know, if any time, I mean, mental health support has always been needed, but now more than ever, I think with COVID and just the rocky year that we've all had. So I'm happy to stop there and see if anybody has any questions or comments or.
Can we ask the folks on Zoom
Yes.
first? Give them about 10 seconds if somebody wants to unmute their mic and ask a question on Zoom. Five, four, three, two. Okay, somebody in the room.
I saw your hand first in the back there, sir.
Are there any resources that you don't have that you would simply like to have, like a wish list that would help you with your job?
And can you restate the question?
Yeah, so what would be resources, what would be on my wish list? One thing is we do not have a lot of inpatient detox beds. So Gateway is great, but they have a very finite number, and also people without insurance, who is predominantly who I treat. It's really hard to get them access to those kind of services. So people who are actually wanting to sober up and get clean, there's really not a lot of options for them. I think, you know, I think we do have collaboration, but oftentimes people are admitted to psychiatric units and nobody notifies me, or they don't notify, or they don't know to notify me or the treating provider. So having better communication, maybe a better way to track these high utilizers, you know, which is what a lot of the MHOP folks are, but a better way to kind of track who's, you know, in a system-wide collaboration is, okay, well, this person was in UF, you know, on Monday, and then they went to Wekiva, and then they went to Memorial. You know, maybe having more targeted programs to work with those individuals to really try to keep them, you know, out of the mental health facilities. Also, of course, money. I mean, it's not just money. You need, you know, skilled people to deliver the services, but, you know, mental health ranks 50th out of 50 for mental health funding per capita. So historically, the Florida State Legislature has not been generous in funding, you know, services. And of course, Florida is a state that did not expand Medicaid, so a lot of people have really nowhere to turn. That's why I'm very grateful to be at Sulzbacher, because insurance, well, we could see you there, because I'm assuming most of you, if not all of you, are insured, but we don't have to, and we don't need to financially. So about 75% of our individuals are uninsured, you know, but Sulzbacher is a special place. There's not a lot of Sulzbachers around. So having more options for people who don't have income or insurance, because in the end, you're going to end up paying for them one way or another. It's just, you know, focusing more on prevention rather than, you know, the horse has already run out the barn and you're trying to shut the barn door. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
And what happens to people who are in the program? How does it become, or does it become a program? What's success?
Right. Well, I mean, we're looking, yes. So what would be success at the end of the 9-month program, the MHOP pilot? Well, we're actively working on funding now. We are lucky our board chair is Darnell Smith, who probably is the most well-connected man around. So he has offered to do a meet and greet with all the major funders and representatives from Sulzbacher. Chief Judge Mahan has also been talking to funders. I forgot to mention David Kilcrease. He used to be at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, retired briefly, and now has come back. So he's the court admin type for this program. So he's also been setting up meetings for funding. If worst comes to worst, which I do think it'll get funded, it may not be funded because we're asking for a big wish list, which really isn't that big when I compare what we're asking for in terms of what they've done in Miami. I mean, Miami's a bigger area, obviously, but they've gotten many, many millions of dollars for their efforts. So I don't think it's an over ask, but even if Nothing got funded, worst case scenario. The individuals we would still follow through Sulzbach or through our case management. We do have outreach teams, that could go to them. So we would find some way to take care of them through our existing resources. Yes, sir.
You suggested that you also have the need to find something meaningful for folks to do during the day. Does that mean employment? Does that mean?
Right. So, well, I'll tell you one example of an individual we're working with now, who actually has under the table doing demolition work. Oftentimes what happens is people come by Sulzbacher looking for cheap labor, load them up in the van and take them to a job site where they do usually very physical, probably dangerous things, and then may or may not pay them, which I found that out, which is sad, but this individual was getting paid. So he likes to do that. He felt very proud of the work he did. He doesn't use the money wisely, but so anyway, so finding perhaps program through Voc Rehab, perhaps putting those individuals in that program. Psychosocial rehab, which are basically classes for people with severe mental illness where they can go for the day, they can interact with others, they can do activities. We have a few individuals we're enrolling in those services. Unfortunately, you need to have your insurance, you need to have at least Medicaid. So the people that we're working on getting their benefits reinstated, unfortunately, the second won't take yet. One of our individuals is really into cooking, so trying to find him maybe some culinary classes to do, and it's not, we're not exactly approaching it from the standpoint of, they're going to be completely self-sufficient, but all of us need something meaningful to do during the day. You can't just put somebody in a motel room that's like a box and, not a lot of human contact. I mean, none of us would do well. And it's not a lot different from jail, except you get a TV and probably more comfortable furnishings. But so anyway, so we quickly realized we need to get people doing things out and about. The one guy who has the intellectual disability and has over 130 arrests, we often take him out, people out. We do a laundry day for our clients, helping them do their own, we don't do the laundry, but we assist, direct them through the laundry process, taking them out food shopping, things like that, getting them used to being in the community, doing, regular things to take care of themselves. Yes, sir.
I was just thinking that a job that could be available that would be perhaps fitting would be to be a prep, because it's routine. You do it, it doesn't require a lot of thought, just do this, prep potatoes, carrots, etc., all of that. And I would think that some of the restaurants might appreciate that because they could pay a minimum wage, and if it would fit their schedule, that's it.
Right, so the comment was about having people work as prep cooks, perhaps with some of the local restaurants. And yes, I agree. I mean, I think that, if we could get partnerships with some local restaurants, where it would be more like a supportive working environment, definitely people could do it. And, like the one individual who sometimes does the demo work, he feels really proud of having some money in his pocket. I mean, even though it's not much, and unfortunately he bought me a bottle of wine. Which I did not ask for, but he just shows up with this goofy grin on his face, because he wanted to show appreciation. And, I mean, and then he buys the things he shouldn't. At least he didn't drink the bottle of wine himself. But anyway, but he was very proud that he had earned this money and he was able to buy a gift. So, and we all are that way, I think. My kids are. I try to instill that in them, to earn things rather than, having everything kind of handed to you. So yes. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to thank you for your involvement in this program. This is a long overdue program. I work in the system, so I'm well familiar with it. And I just want people to understand that, when you're talking about 130 arrests, things like that, these are literally people that are sleeping on park benches or sitting outside a gas station downtown. They get arrested, they get released the next day because their charges get dropped because they have mental health issues. And so we've not had anything in place like this to actually be able to treat these people. And I am so hopeful that we get the funding and that this program can continue, because I think it's an excellent idea. And like you compared it to the Miami program, I realize that's kind of above and beyond where we are now, but it's certainly something to aspire to.
Yes.
Thank you for your work in this program.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, sir.
One of life's great questions, when I was a slack-jawed youth growing up in Jacksonville, had to do with our belief that there was a gigantic mental hospital in the town of Chattahoochee, Florida. So that if you wanted to hurl an insult to one of your buds, it was, "You're nuts, you're going to Chattahoochee." And that was our belief. Is there, or was there, or does there still exist a big hospital, state hospital in Chattahoochee?
So is there a state hospital in Chattahoochee? And the answer is yes, it is still in operation. It is the largest of the state facilities. There's been talk for probably decades now about closing it, but it's still open. They did have a bad COVID outbreak where they had, I want to say it was around 13 or 15 individuals catch COVID and actually die. You know, the state hospitals are interesting because they're like their own little world. The rules are different there. Sometimes the lines get a little blurry with who's the staff and who's the patient. I'm just being honest, but you know, they do, because they're a very controlled environment, they do get people stable. But the problem is you can't keep people in those controlled environments forever. Plus, you're basically locking somebody, you know, away, you know, if you do. So
that was the idea, wasn't it?
Right, and it used to be.
Lock them up, and
yes.
That way they're out of everybody's hair.
Right, or if you wanted to get rid of your wife, for example, you would say that she was crazy and you would put her in an asylum. That's what they used to do. They used to do things like that. So I'm not talking about you specifically, but
I tried using that. It didn't work.
But they weren't always used appropriately. Now, are facilities like that better than keeping somebody locked up in jail? Yes, you know, because they're focused on treatment, there's activities. You know, but I guess we have to look at, you know, long-term, you know, we have to, as a community, have a way to have people that are not quite like us in our community. Sometimes I'm often struck by the fact that a lot of the issues, and I'm not talking about violence, although people who are severely mentally ill and homeless are much more likely to be the victim of a crime than a perpetrator. Like the intellectual disability man with schizophrenia, he's, I'm sure, been victimized horribly, but you know, oftentimes it's, if our society was more tolerant to some of the different behaviors, like for example, if somebody's talking to themselves, as long as they're not hurting anybody, they're not really bothering anybody, I don't care. You know, it's their right to chatter to themselves. I don't personally feel the need to immediately intervene and, you know, call the police. The whole Baker Act process, putting a severely mentally ill person in handcuffs in the back of a cop car, to me is inhumane. But I realize there's reasons for the way things are done, but it just often, I hate Baker acting anybody, because I know that that's going to happen and it's going to re-traumatize them. But if our society could have, and this goes back to the stigma and why things are not like NAMI are so important, you know, if our society can have more of an attitude of less judgmental, because especially now there's a lot of judgment flying around from everywhere, right? You look at, I mean, I'm not on social media except for LinkedIn, but if you look, you know, people are attacking each other over social media, they're calling, I mean, all of it. And I don't want to get too political, but, you know, if people approached it from a standpoint of being more tolerant, being more kind, you know, if there's no threat of violence, just because someone's talking to themselves doesn't mean they're going to hurt you. I mean, honestly, no matter how severely mentally ill someone is, if they know that you care about them, if they can sense it, because they can sense it, they can, they're really not going to hurt you. I mean, I worked in a state psychiatric facility and was pregnant with my daughter there. You know, the worst that happened to me was somebody, like a woman was cranky at me and she kind of pushed my purse. Because the attitude that I approach, you know, when they know that you care, they can sense that, you know, No matter how sick somebody is, they can usually sense that you care. Now, if they have drugs in their system, then all bets are off. That's a situation where I get away because you can't you can't form that rapport when somebody's actively high on something. I mean, in my experience, you got to wait till they sober up. But so anyway, but if our society could look a little kinder, you know, and not try to, and I'm a psychiatrist and I diagnose people for a living, but I think we sometimes make things out to be worse than they are, and we over pathologize sometimes. So, but that's my opinion.
Could you explain the Baker Act?
Yes.
What are the provisions of it?
Yes.
Could you restate that?
So what is
I'm
the?
not accusing you of anything.
What is the Baker Act? Right. No, nobody will get Baker Acted today, I promise. So the Baker Act is used to involuntarily commit somebody. So all you're doing is when you put on a Baker Act, you're saying that somebody needs to evaluate them. So even if I'm an outpatient psychiatrist, I Baker Act someone, it means they have to go to a Baker Act receiving facility, which not all hospitals are. In this, MHRC is, UF is, Memorial. I don't think Baptist Downtown is. So they have to go to a Baker Act receiving facility. And all that does is kind of give them a ticket to be evaluated. Now, once they get to the ER, which sometimes happens when, like I said, I hardly Baker Act, and when I do, I really mean it. But sometimes, unfortunately, what happens is they get to the ER, they don't call me, and then they lift the Baker Act, which means they say, no, this person's fine. Or they could say, you know, this person's not fine, we're going to admit them. And then under that Baker Act, you get 72 hours worth that you can hold them involuntarily. If you need to hold them longer, then you file additional paperwork. So why would you Baker Act somebody? It could be threats to hurt themselves. Either it could be just a threat, it could be an action. It could be threats to hurt someone else, or it could be inability to care for self. So one lady that I Baker Acted, she was rain. She's in the downtown area, and she sits outside. It was one of those days when it was just a deluge. It was coming down, down, down. She was sopping wet. She was actually sitting in her own feces and waste on the sidewalk, and it was cold, just sitting there in the pouring rain. So that would be an example of inability to care for self, or somebody that stops eating, and they're losing weight, or they stop drinking, or something like that. So, so those would be instances when you might need to use a Baker Act. Ideally, you always get somebody to voluntarily say, yeah, I'll go, I'll check myself into the hospital, I'll get some help. Unfortunately, what I've noticed in this area is this, and again, it comes down to insurance. If they're not insured and they just show up in a hospital, a lot of times, even if they say, you know, the key words to get in, they don't get admitted. So I put them on a Baker Act, even though I know that they can consent and they want to go, because that Baker Act will guarantee that they at least get a, which is awful. I mean, but I want to guarantee that they will at least get in the door. So that would be a situation where you use the Baker Act.
Would you have to sort of explain who it is that can sign the paperwork? I think that's.
Oh, who can sign the paperwork? Yes.
Well,
Oh, right. So the police can sign it. A psychiatrist can sign it. A physician can sign it. A psychiatric nurse practitioner can sign it. They have 2 years of training. I don't think PAs can sign it. I think medical nurse practitioners can sign it, but it basically needs to either be a healthcare professional or the cops. So you can't Baker Act your family member. Well, oftentimes what people will do is they'll call JSO, and then oftentimes JSO doesn't want to Baker Act them either. But usually, I'm not sure why, but usually when I say, oh, well, I've already done the form, even though it's just a one-pager back, you know, two-pager, one sheet of paper, you know, because then they have to transport that person and all that. So like I said, I try to stay away from the Baker Act, but there's just certain situations where I feel like I'm, you know, kind of in a corner and I have to. Anything else?
I'm going to thank you from us.
Thank
And as
you.
a thank you, we'll be making a contribution in your honor to the Rotary Foundation for Polio Plus. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Apologize for Rotary International and Barry's sensitivity to Chattahoochee, and thank you for handling that so well. Right.
Great questions. And you have closed the circle.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for that. So Richard, on Thursday, do we have 3 pantries that we're going to and set up and things like that?
3 food pantries, they know we're coming. The times are 9, 10, and 11:30.
Great. So that means that you can show up and help load food. You can show up somewhere and unload food. You could transport food. You're not committed to the entire day. You can just do what part of that you may be able to do. So we're looking forward to everyone stepping in to help me get a district grant in 3 days. We can do it. I know that we can do that. So yeah, and John, you'll be offering an iPhone tutorial next week. Is that true?
Oh, ouch.
I know. Thank you very much, Colleen, for that as well. And next week, our speaker is Sheriff Mike Williams, so which leads me to say RSVP for every event that you would like to attend so that we can plan for your attendance. And as we end our meeting, please join me in the Rotary motto. Service of self, one province, most to serve. See you next week.